Welcome back to What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur. I'm Vincent Lanci, speaker and author of the book Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption. Want to know what it's really like to be an entrepreneur? Well, you came to the right place. Whether you're already an entrepreneur, are looking to start your journey tomorrow, or are someone who needs a little extra motivation to get through the day, this is the perfect podcast for you. This is the place where you will learn exactly what it's like in the world of entrepreneurship and hear real-life, authentic stories of entrepreneurs grinding on each episode. My goal for this podcast is to help you realize that giving up is never an option. If you missed last week's episode, be sure to download it after you tune in today. My guest on the show this week is someone I met when I first started grinding as an entrepreneur. I was getting my name out there, attending networking events as frequently as I could, and above all, connecting with amazing individuals like the man I have with me today. Another part-time snowbird, and another entrepreneur and someone you will learn a lot from. Here is Mr. Jon Landers. Jon, thank you for joining my podcast today.
I'm great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, Jon, why don't you go ahead and share your story with our listeners and share what you're working on today afterwards?
Sure. Well, I've actually been working on something I used to do in New York City before moving here. It was a monthly music showcase. We called it the Big Apple Indie Music Series. And basically TBAIMS for short, so we abbreviated it. It was a monthly showcase supporting independent artists, all genres or most, and it was also networking for them to connect with industry people from music, entertainment, TV, and film, including A&Rs. And what we did was we'd bring in, a typically event would be 8 to 12 on a Wednesday night. We'd bring in up to 6 different artists, always mix the genres, and they'd each do 20 minutes or 4 songs each live. For the people that we brought in, and then plus their fan base. It was quite unique. We were probably one of the top showcases in New York for the time we did it, and we really enjoyed it. But since I'm in my second marriage and my second wife has a daughter and granddaughter down here, I was inclined to make the move down to Florida. And as a result, I'm still researching the market down here because it's a lot different than New York, as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jon, thanks for that, and thanks for coming on today. Each week, something that I do is share an entrepreneurial story that is sure to inspire our listeners. I like this part of the show, Jon, because I get to learn a lot more about different perspectives from entrepreneurship. Since I have someone involved with the world of music and musicians in front of me, I'm going to introduce the story that many of you may not know, but you definitely know the name in Johnny Cash. His real name is J.R. Cash, a name chosen because his parents just couldn't agree on a name for their newborn. As a child, Cash was poor growing up, a son to 2 farmers during the Great Depression. This is really interesting for me, Jon, because this website Tuts Plus, this music database, has all of these stories that I never knew about. Nothing was going on in his family's way. Things only got worse each and every day. His brother Jack was killed in an accident on a sawmill, and he saw many other of his friends have similar instances. Similar to many people at that age, he went on to go to the military and improve his life. Unfortunately, spending time in the military was definitely not an upgrade over the cotton fields. He didn't fit in well in either place. He left the military, got married, and similar to Elvis Presley, moved to Memphis, Tennessee. He started working as an appliance salesperson to earn some extra money in his new city. He eventually got up the courage to ask Sam Phillips at Sun Records for an audition. Sam Phillips was one of the most well-known producers in the 1950s. His life of being poor, struggling, and not knowing what tomorrow will bring soon ended, but his early formative years grew up during the Great Depression were never forgotten. These times played as a major motivator and a major influencer to form many greatest hit songs that he made. Like many young people at the time, Cash enlisted in the military to make his life better, but like I said, it didn't, and we're all lucky as music fans to get some Johnny Cash records.
Yes, that's pretty cool. So I learned something too. He also actually learned how to translate Russian Morse code while he was in the Army.
Really?
Air Force, yeah.
Yeah, man of many tools.
I looked up myself.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's like. I like to find these articles from. I've been using Tuts Plus, it's called, for the music articles, and they do these great write-ups. And I wasn't too big into music, so I'm learning things each episode. So thanks for that extra piece of info, Jon. But now let's get into the big 5. It's 5 questions that I go over each week, Jon, with each interview I do for each entrepreneur. So question 1, when did you realize that you weren't happy with what you were doing or that you just needed a change?
Well, good question. Back in the day, I was a manufacturer's rep in the hardware, lawn, and garden industry. My territory was actually Maine to Virginia. I was doing 54,000 miles a year rather, on my car, traveling to all the different Home Depots, big box home centers to sell and support our products in the stores. I kind of burned down in '99, and as a result, went through a divorce from a 29-year marriage.
Okay.
That kind of made me decide that, this is not really what I want to do anymore. I switched gears. I actually started to pick up graphic design, self-taught, and actually bought a business in 2001 on 9/7 of all days.
Yeah.
And It was an existing company business. I bought that. I tried to make it, tried to keep it going, but after a few years of that, with the 9/11, that industry was starting to go downhill anyway, and I decided, music was really my passion. So I became a songwriter, and that's what kind of saved me from my depression going through that divorce. And I decided, I want to pay it forward from now on, and that's when I started the Big Apple Indie Music Series.
Yeah, I love that, and I didn't know that about you. I mean, that why you brought it all together and why you got involved in this with TBAIMS. Because when I met you, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome to see that you're still grinding with it. What are one or two of the most difficult parts you would say to being an entrepreneur? For question number 2, the big 5. If you had to pick one or two, please describe that for us.
Well, one of the biggest challenges is finding the right partners to work with, and without hidden agendas and their own ideas of what they want to do. Because I had a team in place in New York that I thought would continue these showcases while I built it down here. And then the week before I moved, they all bailed on me, deciding that they didn't want to do it without me physically being there. And actually, I was doing most of the work anyway. So I figured, all right, I got to be different. I got to take a different view on how I pick people to help me with my projects. And that's been one of my biggest challenges. Also, working with people in the industry that aren't who they claim they are, but they aren't. And there's a lot of snakes out there that will try to take advantage of the artist and not provide what they offer.
Yeah, I can imagine. I learned that something similar when I was doing real estate, that buyers are liars. People just lie and they blow the smoke just to get the conversation, but end up wasting everybody's time involved.
Yep.
Yeah, selecting the right people is tough to even as far as your business model, besides people just to work with in that facet, but supplier relationships and for your venues. What's the biggest venue that you organized for TBAIMS when you were up in New York?
Well, we started at the Gibson Guitar Studios on the Midtown Manhattan West Side, which actually was under the radar because it's a place where a lot of the headliners go to rehearse for their concerts in the area. I happened to find that through my networking abilities, which I studied networking first before I even started this. I read a book called Endless Referrals by Bob Berg, it's B-U-R-G, which gave me the fundamentals about networking because most people don't know how to network and they don't do it properly. By doing that, I connected with the people that got me in touch with Gibson Guitar Studios. They loved my concept idea, so we were there for like almost 7-8 months of doing our showcases there. Unfortunately, they were going under some renovation, so we had to find a different venue. And we moved from that to Tobacco Road, the Cutting Room, and ending up at Toshi's Living Room, which was part of the Flatiron Hotel on 26th and Broadway, which was our final area, which we had a great time there. It was right on 26th and Broadway, picture windows right on both sides with a stage in the very corner. And on a good day, when we had our performances, we'd draw people right into the venue.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Question number 3 here. What is one of your greatest failures and what did it teach you?
It kind of relates to what I mentioned earlier, trying to work with the right people in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and more recently, when I moved down to Florida, I was approached by some people, this guy who was an NBC executive in New York and knew what I was doing. And he had touched base with me when I was up there and he wanted to get involved. And he said he would, and I actually had a showcase planned for the first year I was down here in 2015. And he promised to have his people come in and do a live stream to 200 countries through various different networks. And the week before my event, which I had 6 artists already lined up, Suddenly he wasn't available. I couldn't get a hold of him. He wouldn't answer my texts, my messages, and I had a feeling, well, no, this guy wasn't going to come through. So I actually canceled the event and started over saying, you know what, no rush. I'm not going to take my rush on this thing, and that's where I am today. I'm just trying to find the right people to get involved with this whole program.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that certain people can set you back quite a bit, but you learn from it, and now you're a little more selective, which is an important lesson learned, right? So,
Yeah.
Number 4, I like this one because there's so many possibilities for each person to choose from. If you could choose to have a conversation and learn from any entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would that be?
That was an easy one for me, Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
And I mean, I read his biography, which fascinated me completely. Here's a guy that knew exactly what he wanted to do, regardless of all the people that, were against whatever he did and the way he did it. But he did it, and look where we are today with iPhones, and all this other stuff that he's developed. I mean, the guy was phenomenal. I have a lot of respect for him in that.
Yeah, I agree. How would you think he would feel if he knew how many versions of the iPhone and how it's not the one phone anymore? How there's the C, the S, the so many versions.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if he would like that, or if he would be already to the next level of different types of technologies yet. We're kind of like in a stagnating situation right now with so many of the same people doing. I mean, the Google phone now and the Samsung, they all do similar things, but it's just a competition now, and it's unfortunate. I think iPhone really was a catalyst for where we are today.
I think it was as well. The reason I asked that is because somebody I interviewed on a prior episode brought up Steve Jobs, and that was the comment they made, and similar answer.
Yeah.
So now, number 5 of the big 5, John, where do you see yourself and your entrepreneurial endeavors in 1 year from today and then 5 years from today? So let's start with 1 year from today. Where do you see yourself and your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Okay, so I hope to be able to actually start my music showcases within the next year in the Tampa Bay area. With the right corporate sponsors in place and what have you. And I'm really researching that still. Part of that is that I'm also very critical about the venue in terms of the quality of the sound system that they have. What I find in most areas, most coffee shops or music places, the sound systems are set up in such a way where the engineer doesn't let you hear the vocals. You get the instruments overplaying the vocals, and you really don't know what the person's singing about or what if they can actually sing. That's really critical to me in anything I do. I'm always making sure that you can hear the vocals clearly with the music behind it. And I'm sure anyone who goes to a concert or whatever kind of place out there, whether it be the attic or various different venues. I won't just choose anyone, but yeah, there are issues. You're not guaranteed the quality of the engineer where you go, and that's the difference between here and New York. New York most venues in New York have their own built-in backline or a sound system with their engineers, and they're usually pretty good, but not in every case. But here you have to outsource, so you don't have control of the quality of what you're going to get when you get there, and that's my biggest challenge right now. I might even think about opening my own venue at this point, which would be a challenge in itself.
So that's more of 1 year plan. And 5 years from today, 5 years from right now, what are you hoping for?
It's building the TBAIMS brand further and to replicate what I'm doing, I'll do here into other major music cities. It's not just for the Florida area. I want to have a global presence, and that's my goal long term, including developing apps that connect artists in a way that they haven't been connected to their fan base, to the industry, etc. There's a lot that can be done still, and I'm still working on that.
That's all very exciting stuff. I'm excited to see how far you take it. So, John, it's time for the last word. Is there something that you want to share with the listeners today that we did not get a chance to touch on?
Well, let's see. That one I wasn't planning. I studied that. Yeah. Basically, it's teaching the artists the industry today, because if you're an artist today, an independent artist, you really need to learn the business side of this whole industry. Without that, chances are you won't succeed unless you have the luckiness of meeting the right people, and that's part of the networking aspect. You have to be professional. Don't have a big ego on yourself, thinking that you expect everything to come your way. It's not going to happen. Be respectful of the people around you who help you, and of the venues, and of your fan base. That's really critical.
I love that. Thanks. Jon, why don't you go ahead and share your social media or your website for TBAIMS, something to give our listeners a way to follow your endeavors?
Yes. Okay. So the website is TBAIMS. That's T as in Tom, B as in boy, AI, M as in Mary, S as in Sam.com. On Twitter, it's Creative Jon, also TBAIMS, TBAIMS. On Facebook, it's Creative Jon 62, but it's also under the Big Apple Indie Music Series. And on Instagram, it's TBAIMS. That's mainly where we're branding ourselves. And actually, TBAIMS, just so you know, was the Big Apple Indie Music Series, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the best artist indie music series, because what I look for are artists that know how to have stage presence, know how to engage the audience, can sing on key and not be off key without auto tune or something that makes you sound better than you are. So that's where it separates me from most other events out there. And that's pretty much it. I'm also on LinkedIn under TBAIMS and Jon Landers as well.
Thanks for sharing that, Jon. You can also follow the show on Instagram at Your Favorite Morning Podcast and on Twitter at PodcastsByLanci. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lanci on all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalanci.com. Be sure to check out my book on Amazon, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and DM me or email me. Let me know what you think of it. If you really enjoyed today's episode, please continue listening and rate What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur 5 stars. I work hard to find value-delivering stories for you each episode. And as always, I will follow the last word with a quote that inspired me, and I know it will for you too. Dream it, wish it, do it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur.